Hello, welcome. Happy Friday to everyone. I'm Sam. If you didn't know that already, I'm here with a special guest. Well, not that special a guest, who I'll introduce in a moment. Um, we're here today to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is superheroes. It's no secret that superheroes have taken our world by storm. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past 20 years, you've probably watched at least a few superheroes movies by now, and probably even a few legitimately good ones, because we live in an age where there are good ones out there, arguably more so than the past, maybe 15, 20 years ago. I've loved superheroes since I was a little boy, and now I'm 30 and I never quite outgrew them. And if you didn't know already, I'm writing a superhero story called Fractured Heroes that I've been working on for some time now. So since it's my genre, both as a fan and as a writer, I wanted to explore some questions about superheroes today that either writers can learn from or fans or anyone in between. I guess the question is threefold. One, what are the best superhero stories out there, movies or otherwise? I think we'll talk a lot about movies since that's kind of what people are focusing on these days, but we both read comics too and watch some of the shows and things like that, so any superhero stories are fair game. Two, what is it about these stories that resonates with us so much? What makes them so good and so compelling? Can we figure that out? And three, what can we as writers learn from them? Some of you out there are also writing in the superhero genre, but even if you're not, even if that's not your genre, is there anything that just writers of any genre can learn from stories like these that have captured, millions of audiences and such like that, millions of fans? Can we apply that to our own writing and creating? That's where I want to go today. I have with me writer and fellow fan and longtime friend Corbin Payne. Hi, Corbin.
Yo, what's up?
If you couldn't tell, I am more of a Marvel fan, and Corbin is a DC guy, but nobody's perfect. So
We love you anyway.
be here anyway.
So we love you anyway.
Yeah, we're all friends here. No, I mean, in reality, we both like both Marvel and DC. We just maybe lean toward one more than the other, but that's okay. So we're going to talk today about some of our favorite superhero movies and or stories, and what we can learn from them as writers. If you're following along, watching with us, I hope you'll join us too. In the comments, tell us what your favorite superhero movie is. Favorite superhero movie or show or story you've seen. I want to hear from you, and why you love it so much. Tell us that so we can talk about it too. But I'll start off. I'll ask you, Corbin. Tell us about, I guess, one of your favorites, some of your favorites. I don't know how we want to do this, and
So
what's great about them? So go ahead, kick us off.
So I guess my top three, and I think these are also in your top three, are Dark Knight, Avengers, and Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I didn't bring Avengers. Avengers is up there for sure. But yeah. Okay. Some of these are very different from each other. So start with Dark Knight, I guess. I mean, everyone knows that that's a classic. I mean, some people consider it the best superhero movie of all time. But what's so great about that one?
Well, I do agree that it is one of the best superhero movies of all time. And I think you've got to start with the performance that Heath Ledger turned in. Any discussion of that movie has to start there. And I loved how it's just kind of a complex movie. And I would argue that despite the title referencing Batman, Batman isn't like the central character to the movie. He's not the one that's undergoing quite the transformative journey that you normally expect out of a hero's journey. The person who goes through the transformative journey is actually Harley Dent.
That's true. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
But
definitely an unconventional story in many ways.
Yeah. So one thing I've really enjoyed about a lot of the DC live action movies is how they've taken elements from some of the great DC comic storylines and put them into movies, and not necessarily as a straight adaptation the way Marvel likes to do with the MCU. So I don't think there's been a Batman movie made since Batman Begins or that hasn't pulled extensively from the Dark Knight comic book story from Frank Miller. But something too that not a lot of people talk about, but plenty of people caught is there's a storyline in DC Comics. I think it's called One Fine Day, or something.
One Bad Day or something like that.
Yeah. As soon as I said it, I was like, no, that's not right. But basically, it shows how the Joker came to be the Joker, and he turned out to be kind of this down on his luck loser nobody who, over a series of just really horrific events, loses everything and becomes the Joker.
I think the graphic novel is actually called Batman: The Killing Joke, but he uses the phrase "one bad day" to kind of argue that, like, if you had one really bad day, you'd go the same. You would go crazy just like me.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah,
you're right. There was a storyline called One Bad Day that was kind of a continuation of that, but I think I digress. So the concept there is the Joker has a really bad day and it breaks him. And in The Killing Joke, he tries to take some characters, Barbara Gordon, Jim Gordon, and Batman, subject them to the same one bad day, and prove that everyone's going to turn out just like him. And in The Dark Knight, you kind of have the Joker pulling off the same thing, or trying to pull off the same thing. He puts a series of people through a series of really bad events and expects that they're going to go evil. And in the case of Harley Dent, it works. In the case of Batman, he doesn't change, although perceptions of him change, where he's viewed as the bad guy, even though he's actually the hero that they need. And Jim Gordon does the one thing that he was bound and determined not to do, and that was lie to protect a wrongdoer, a corrupt individual. So if you think about going back to his character story in Batman Begins, he's the one honest cop. And in Dark Knight, he's forced to make all these compromises to save the city. So you kind of see the route these characters take. And even if you're not even if you weren't, everybody who's familiar with the comics knows Batman's going to stay good. He's going to come out good on the other side.
Spoilers.
Jim Gordon isn't going to, Jim Gordon's a good guy. He'll make tough decisions. He'll do whatever. And Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face. So anyway, that's you knew that. But even if you didn't know all that, you kind of had hints early on that while Bruce is looking for an out with Rachel, she's sitting there going, no, I don't think so. And he's one to sit there and take the punch, take the pain, take whatever receive whatever it takes to save the city. Gordon is willing to be devious and cunning and strategic, and Harvey Dent is just, morally compromised. Thinks he's doing things for the right reasons, but he's morally compromised. He's kind of one person in public and another person in a hospital, in an ambulance when no one else is around.
After a traumatic event that changed him for life, but yes.
Yes. So I would argue that in the book, in that movie, Batman's the one that changes the least. So, but he's kind of the one you're expecting to go through the hero's journey, and True. It's kind of it's kind of cathartic to watch him resist all that and come out unbowed, unblemished, and it's kind of fun to watch Gordon try to run around and be cunning, but it's not fun to watch him grappling with the decision to do something kind of sleazy. And in the scene where Rachel gets killed, I remember sitting there, and it didn't take me by surprise, but I remember sitting there going, oh crap, and then when it happened, I was like, no way.
Most movies up to that point hadn't actually killed off the love interest. For example, the Spider-Man movies would never do that. I think what makes a Marvel movie and a Batman movie excellent, that movies are very different things, but very different tones. But I was surprised. I was like, they actually went that route. Yeah. They're doing it. Yeah.
So when Batman,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, and quite frankly, I expected Batman to burst in, save Rachel. Two-Face was going to be horribly deformed and believe that nobody could love him and go bad that way. When Batman came in and it's Harvey, like I remember being, oh crap, in the blue. So
I
I
just
guess
remember so this is a slight side note. I just remember seeing the scene where like Harvey's tied up in his chair and his face lands on the floor, the one side of his face, and the gasoline, and obviously only one side of his face gets the gasoline, and I'm like, I know where this is going. Yeah.
yeah. So it was the way that scene went. I mean, it was amazing, and it just kind of, I don't know how intentional this was, but it really kind of captured a lot of our, I think, the national and even international angst and emotions around the war on terror, and definitely the moral conflict in ways that just were fascinating. And I think that's worth calling out because I think The Dark Knight Rises, which I thought it's an entertaining movie, not nearly as good as either its predecessors,
I agree.
and Captain America: Civil War, which I flat out dislike. I thought both movies were very intentionally trying to do for other issues what The Dark Knight did around kind of the war on terror. So Dark Knight Rises, it's kind of like came out around the time of like the Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street, excuse me,
Or
Tea Party, all these populist.
yeah, it's almost 10
Uh,
years old if you can do that. It was 2012.
yes, yes, and I think Captain America: Civil War tried to tap into some of the angst we were feeling about. We were feeling about like growing power of the government and um, some of the fears we were feeling about policing, and this was before things really blew up. And I thought it was a little bit heavy-handed in the way they did it, and they tried to shoehorn a good story into that, and it didn't quite work. So,
Yeah,
and on that
I
note,
have
can I,
yeah, yeah. I mean, we could go on our rabbit trails all day. I have some issues with that one too, but I won't get into it here. So
sure,
go ahead.
sure. And I'll talk a little bit more in depth about Winter Soldier, but just to
Okay.
kind of tap into that briefly, because it's kind of along the same point. One of the reasons I like it so much is it it kind of captured a lot of our feelings around government surveillance and the increasing surveillance that was going on, and some of our fears about the dark side of that.
Mm.
Um, but instead of shoehorning a really good story into it, that issue, they had a really good story, and they kind of brought these issues in. So
Yeah,
one of the
yeah,
reasons I really like Captain America: Winter Soldier and The Dark Knight is because I think they're really good stories that also tap into these larger and higher themes. And in 20 years from now, I think people will still be watching those movies and enjoying them, and they have these timeless themes within them.
hmm
Even if this is like well post war on terror, well post our fears about increasing government surveillance, um, I think there's still going to be really great movies that people are still going to enjoy.
yeah. Good points. You said a lot there. I'll try to comment on some of it. I think both Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are excellent. I mean, The Dark Knight is more lasting because of Heath Ledger and all that stuff. As stories, as movies, I wouldn't really say one is better than the other. I think they're both really, really great. I mean, I'm a Christopher Nolan fanboy. I think he has like 4 or 5 flawless movies, and the rest are pretty good, even if they're not perfect. I think Dark Knight Rises is pretty good, even if it's not perfect. But yeah, and your point about how little bit Batman changed in the Dark Knight, I think his transformation really was in Batman Begins, and I guess over the whole arc if you watch him. But I mean, by the end of Dark Knight Rises, he's changed too. But yeah, I mean, so he has his hero journey elsewhere. But that's a good point.
Yes.
And I like what you mentioned about the timeless themes. And I mean, I know nobody really goes to a superhero movie thinking, oh, I'm gonna like get some really deep philosophical themes today. I mean, maybe someone out there, but that's part of what makes a story, I guess, better than just a story for me. I think I've quoted this before, maybe in the last talk we did, but there's a quote that says, "Being entertaining is a minimum requirement for a story. A good story will be more, but it must not be less." So yeah, I mean, if you sacrifice story for political message or whatever, that's not good. But if you have a good story and make it do something more than just a story, like even just themes of, even if it's not like a political message, even just themes of like human redemption, or I don't know, human um, whatever, good versus evil, like that kind of thing. If it means something more than just a
Yeah.
story, those are the ones that resonate with us the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the Falcon and the Winter Soldier very much tried to do this. Now,
Yeah.
I think
You mean the show on Disney Plus that just came out, Falcon and Winter Soldier?
yes,
Good show. Watch it if you haven't.
yes, but and I'm not going to like seriously spoil anything, but it was trying to, I think, capture the fight between the kind of the chaotic forces of the dispossessed and the forces of order and but also the established order, which can be oppressive. And I did a little bit of research into this because I felt the motivations of the villains were just not explained very well. And
you and I talked about this elsewhere, but yeah.
But apparently, in that, like when it was first shot, one of the things that was going on was there was this really bad disease that was spreading through these dispossessed communities, and they just weren't being taken care of and being ignored and being sidelined. And then that became less fictional and a whole lot more triggering. So they cut all that out. So apparently, you had also a scene with some very sick people, and it kind of laid out kind of who the constituents of the villains of the series were, and made them a lot more understandable and sympathetic. So when I heard that, I went, "Oh, okay, that makes sense," because that was, in my opinion, misfire. But
yeah.
So
I still really liked it, but there were a few things that weren't fleshed out. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think if that had been a little bit fleshed out, it would have been a really fantastic series. But yeah. So
hey,
I'm a
season 2. There's always hope.
What?
Season 2. There's always hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a sucker for like eternal themes, or some of those just themes that really resonate through the ages. But to go to your quote about, at a minimum, a movie must be entertaining, I completely agree with that. And one of the benefits that Marvel and DC bring to the table is they got really strong characters. Really strong characters.
I mean, these characters in some form have been with us since, I guess, in DC, it's the 30s and 40s, Marvel characters, the 60s.
Superman celebrated his 80th birthday a year or two ago.
Yeah. And not every media that features them is good by today's standards, but there's something about these characters that lasts with us. People will keep telling us stories about Superman and Batman even after the storytelling devices change, even after cultural trends change. Like, these characters have survived.
Yeah. So, it's weird to me that Superman is 80 years old and still going as strong as ever. I say weird, but it's just, I guess, amazing is more like it. But so they've got great, strong characters, but I think in addition to the really strong characters, you've got to have a great story to go with it. And Marvel and DC, time and again, have paired the two together successfully and come out with some just fantastic storylines, whether that's in the comics or the movies or whatever. And not that those are the only two words in superheroes, but you and I'm a DC guy, you're a Marvel guy. That's what we know. But and we could both name movies in both companies that fell flat.
Yeah, and comic storylines. not every storyline over 80 years has been the best one or a
Sure.
big hit. But
Sure.
but again, I mean, even when a certain story isn't the best for whatever reason, the characters have survived, and we're still telling stories about them.
Yeah. Well,
It's interesting.
one of the benefits to the MCU, for instance, I mean, there were, and you and I would talk about this, where you tended to catch the movies like before I did sometimes. You'd be like, oh, not
Yeah.
great, but definitely worth watching every time.
Mhm.
I don't know that there was an MCU movie where you were like, don't go, don't go.
No, no. I've enjoyed all of them on some level. Okay, then there's at least one I didn't enjoy, and I don't want to bash. Right now, I'm more interested in talking about things you like, things you don't like. But
But kind of the point I'm making is I think the MCU's strength is, one, really strong characters. But even on the movies that fell a little bit flat, in some way they tie it into this overarching story, and
the narrative.
which I felt that Infinity War and Endgame were great movies that had their flaws, but that whole overarching story arc was phenomenal. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, um, Robert Downey Jr. and who played Captain America,
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans, um, and Natalie Portman and Jeremy Renner, those guys especially, in both Avengers movies, or both recent Avengers movies, really captured the emotional toll of the snap. And then the follow up, Spider-Man: Homecoming, really kind of drove that point home. So
Yeah,
uh, that's
and
I think what really has set, like, we can talk about all sorts of little things that are different between the MCU and the DCEU, but what has really set the two of them apart is Marvel had a vision, I think, from the get-go, from day one, maybe not day one, but from movie one to now, they had a unified vision. I think probably all the directors and the writers.
we're building up to something.
Yes. And even like I didn't know the Infinity Stone storyline from the comics. I knew you did because I remember you talking to me about it.
I hadn't actually. I had heard about it. I hadn't even read the original one, and I mean, I read it shortly before Infinity War came out because I wanted to know what happened. But like it came out in the '90s when I was little, so I hadn't even read the original one until recently.
Yeah.
But I
So
know about the Infinity Stones and stuff.
yeah. So when Thanos is revealed at the end of Avengers, and you knew, I had to text you, who was that? And you said, I think it's this guy named Thanos. And um, anyway, like a lot people quickly figured out the storyline it was building towards.
Mm-hmm.
That was that was fine. They didn't try to bury the lead there. It was just kind of a matter of watching it play out. And
They also didn't make it super obvious from the beginning. I mean, like I guess people who knew the comics could figure it out.
yeah,
People who didn't were not. Well, some would say they started getting hammered over the head with it because I mean there were parts of like Age of Ultron or something that were only to build up for Infinity War. But I digress.
yeah. So anyway, um, everything kind of built towards it. So
Yeah,
again, even in the movies that kind of lagged, it was like, okay, great. Now the problem
right.
with DCEU is you've not had that unity of purpose. Now, based on what Zack Snyder has discussed in the wake of the Snyder Cut hitting HBO Max, he had a unified vision. He pitched
Yeah,
Warner Brothers was kind of like, okay, and then when they didn't get the MCU numbers, it didn't quite work out.
it seemed like at one time I'd say like 2013 to 17 the DC was trying to catch up to Marvel, and then the Justice League theatrical version just fell so flat, and they kind of didn't do anything after that. I mean they've had like one movie a year since then, and
Yeah,
they've been
and,
fine movies,
and
but
none of them can be described as unified. Now
yeah,
we might have something down the road where you go back in retrospect and go, oh, that was building towards something, but I, for the life of me, can't figure it out. Now,
yeah.
with
So
Go,
I
go.
think they've stopped. I think DC has stopped trying to catch up to Marvel and started trying to do its own thing, which could be good for them.
Yeah,
Um, I'm not the first person to have said this, but DC in some ways is better at telling the standalone stories, whereas Marvel was better at telling the arc, and they're both good in different ways.
yeah. Well, and it's so as a DC guy watching who so and I guess well I could go back and tell my story through DC. I don't think that's too helpful, but as a DC guy watching Batman versus Superman, um, you'd have those. They're called the nightmare sequences, but Bruce's dream sequences, and it was a pretty obvious that we're talking about either what's called the Injustice universe or the Justice Lord's universe, where Justice League goes evil. I
I
think
need to read that one. I haven't read it yet because I know it's a video game, right? Injustice.
yes, but
Um,
it's like yes, and 2 second rabbit trail. One of the best storylines DC has done in the last 20 years, in my opinion. The tie-in to it.
and I'm
Uh,
not I'm not really a gamer, so I've kind of missed that one. But I know they did a comic series that goes along with it, so I need to read that series. It's
no,
flown under my radar, but I've been hearing people talk about it, and you've kind of convinced me I need to read it.
yes, yes, it's absolutely fantastic. But
It's on my list.
to get back, I guess, kind of get back on. There's also a Flashpoint. Great storyline.
Never
Very
Flashpoint.
back in
Never been
time,
part of that.
mom's life resets the timeline, not for the better. Um, and the fact that the Thomas and Martha Wayne were um, just two fantastic characters who hate each other on The Walking Dead. Had some pretty fun thoughts there because he turns
Yeah,
into Batman, into the Joker, and Bruce is the one murdered. And then
in this universe. Yeah.
yeah, so it would have been like I walked out of there as a DC fan really excited. And a lot of my DC comic reading friends were kind of in the same boat and kind of excited for the possibilities of where this was going. Not necessarily thinking it was a great movie, but that it was setting up for some really great stuff. And I think everyone else went, "What the hell did I just watch?"
Yeah, a lot of people. I mean,
Which was a valid point.
overall fan consensus, people don't seem to like Batman versus Superman, but I mean, I'm in some superhero groups. I talk to people who like superheroes, so I know a small but vocal minority who's like, this is a great film, and I did like it when I disliked it, so I'm with you there. But I see what you're saying. The universe didn't quite deliver on everything it promised.
Well, it didn't deliver on just about anything it promised because
Fair.
it got co-opted right afterwards. So I thought so. I don't think the Snyder cut of the Justice League was the definitive movie in superhero making, but I loved it, and I thought it. I would have really loved to have seen kind of where everything went based upon what Snyder has said about his plans for what would have been the future of that would have been really
Yeah.
watch play out. And I'll just say this: one of the things I think the DCEU does better than Marvel is kind of capture the fact that it kind of captures the experience of reading a comic book, and it captures the tone a little bit better. The MCU treats the characters as, and this is fine. This is not a criticism, but it looks at it and says, okay, I mean, yes, these characters and these storylines originated in the comics, but we're going to focus on the characters and the storylines, less than the fact that this is a genre that started in the comics. And the DCEU is more like watching a movie that is definitely a comic book adaptation.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it depends. I could wax eloquent on this for a long time. I know DC in general. I mean, with exceptions, in general, the movies have been more dark, and in Marvel, in general, they've been more light. And I mean, I think, well, obviously, okay, Dark Knight is different from DCEU. That's its own separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, I think I don't know. I could say a lot about this. I think. What's I mean, the DCEU and the Dark Knight have been darker than some of the comics, but I think that works for it at least works for Batman, who is, let's be honest, he's their most popular character. That's why, I mean, they've done that. And I mean, even after the Dark Knight, the next version of Batman is trying to be influenced by that and somewhat. Whereas Marvel has characters like Spider-Man, and I mean, there are some more serious characters in Marvel, but they've started to take more of a lighthearted, comical tone, which I like and don't like. We'll talk about that in a minute, maybe. So,
Yeah,
you can enjoy both, just at different times and in different places in your life, or different days, whatever. Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can. So I think that kind of captures the majority of what I was going to say about movies I liked, except with, I guess, Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Yeah, let's. I want to talk about that one too. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
While we're getting into Marvel, there's a comment from Tess. And again, if you're watching, anyone who's watching, tell us your favorites too, so we can talk about them and tell us what we think, or tell you what we think. She says Thor Ragnarok is also excellent. Let me ask you first. What did you think of Thor Ragnarok?
I thought it was I really liked the first Thor, really disliked Thor 2, and I thought Thor 3 was kind of getting back to where things needed to go. I just felt like it was kind of hard to figure out where to go. I felt like the whole Whiplash moment of, oh, by the way, you've got an older sister I've never talked about, and Asgard used to be evil and imperialistic. Was kind of a lot to throw in there, especially the way it happened. And then, Thor's going on this emotional journey to kind of figure out who he is from that. I just thought that was way too rushed and not set up well enough.
Fair.
But the whole idea of Loki and Thor, like their relationship through this, was actually a lot of fun to watch. And then bringing in Valkyrie was pretty cool. And despite what I just said about, kind of rushing to portray Asgard as imperialistic and oppressive, just with Thor and Loki kind of forging new ground together, the whole backdrop of having to let go of the past, including Asgard, was kind of cool. And the whole way they set up, actually destroying Asgard and defeating Hela was I thought that was very well done. So it's a movie that could have benefited a lot from a better setup, but once you get past that, it was a really good movie.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I will say, okay, I mean, when you first watch it in theaters, I'm hyped up on everything. I mean, I'll admit, even for Thor: The Dark World, which isn't anyone's favorite, the first time I watched it in theaters, I was hyped up. I was like, oh yeah, but on a few rewatches, I was like, it's not the best. It's all right. And now I feel kind of the same way for Ragnarok. I do think it's definitely better than Thor 2. I liked Ragnarok a lot. I think at times it was too jokey. I mean, for better or for worse, Marvel movies have found a formula that works for them. Like the early movies weren't all like slapstick and full of jokes, but I feel like since Guardians of the Galaxy, they've kind of been heading in that direction. Sometimes more than I'd like.
And I think that's especially true after the mixed reaction to Batman versus Superman.
Fair, which was trying to be dark and trying to do something, or at least trying to be deep in some ways, and people didn't quite receive it. So I think Marvel has. I mean, I'm a Marvel fanboy. I'm still gonna watch every Marvel movie, obviously.
And I'm gonna watch MCU movies. And
so first watch, I loved Thor Ragnarok. Second and third watch, I still liked it. I can see some parts that I'm like, okay, that's kind of a lighthearted handling of what's otherwise a serious topic, Ragnarok, the end of the world, and some of these drama things, but still a good movie. Tess, I'm reading your comment about the first Thor, really like the first Thor too. Some people don't. I like the first Thor.
I did.
It's a family drama. The Dark World is a mediocre standard superhero movie, but I still love it.
Yeah.
It's
It,
great for
I don't think it start like you can put it up as a top 10 or whatever. Um, but I really enjoyed it. And for me, it kind of clinched the fact that the MCU was up and running and you got a unified storyline. And I was kind of looking forward to the idea of two pretty cool characters with well-developed backstories coming together. Now that was before like Captain America and some of the other movies that had come out. But am I right on that?
Which
Thought it
which
was.
movie are you talking about?
I think Iron Man. It was Iron Man, and then Thor, and then Captain America, right?
Yes.
Or
Iron Man
Hulk was before Iron Man, but
Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, which is a forgotten movie that I actually like. They both came out in 2008. Thor and Captain America came out in 2011.
okay. And then I'm pretty sure Avengers was in 2012 because I
Yeah.
watched the summer I graduated.
Yes, yes.
We graduated.
Well, I stayed an extra year actually, but I was a senior. I was a super senior. But
Okay,
anyway.
well, anyway,
So yeah, okay. So I guess going back into Marvel movies, I have things to say about Winter Soldier 2. But I'll let you go first. But I think I guess emphasizing this idea of the Marvel universe, I mean, is a very different tone from the DC universe, largely. And I think they're both doing different things. So like, I almost can't compare them. Like, if someone asks me what's the best superhero movie of all time, which I was asking people that just to try to get like hype for this event, but like I can't answer just one. I mean, there's the genre is so diverse now that there's like a very excellent Batman movie and a very excellent Spider-Man movie, and they're excellent in different ways because they're all trying to do different things. So
wait, which Spider-Man movie are you talking about?
I'll get there. But
yeah, we're running on 45 minutes, so we probably.
Oh, are we already? Wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. We are. Okay. Let's try to wrap this up then. Okay.
Time flies when you
when you're having fun. Okay. Okay. So, Winter Soldier. Okay. Tell me what you like about this one.
Okay. So, in brief, kind of this. I touched on some of the themes that it tied into with Dark Knight, but at the same time, I liked the conflict of Captain America, as the man out of time, as Loki described him.
Yeah.
Trying to bring the awesomeness of who Steve Rogers is into the 21st century from the 20th century, trying to cope with all that he's lost. And at the same time, remaining the good man that he was. So kind of like with The Dark Knight, you've got this catalyst coming, and you see S.H.I.E.L.D., how it changes through, and by catalyst, I mean it's the Project Insight, which,
Right.
it was evil, but it wasn't represented as evil from the get-go, but it was this like absolute power type thing. So, and inherent is that is the Lord Acton quote: "Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely." And everyone's reaction to kind of this moment is important. Cap is not on board with it from the get-go, although he doesn't like start lobbing grenades automatically. You see Shield, not Shield, Fury second guess himself, and he goes through his own little journey there. Natasha goes from, hey, I've done awful things, and it's okay to do awful things, but for the right reasons, and that's what S.H.I.E.L.D. is for. And you can kind of see her having that mentality in the Avengers. And you see Cap is like, no, freedom, apple pie, baseball, America, and not really change. And so with that catalyst, he kind of remains who he is. Everyone else kind of changes in response to him. And when in response to the kind of the events of the story, and you kind of see Bucky kind of go from a pawn of the bad guys, a pawn of this absolute power grab to, you know, one of the good guys. Not fully there, but getting close.
He
So
starts to get there in the end. Yeah.
yeah,
I think. Okay, so I think, and I mean, this is a common opinion among some fans. Winter Soldier is the best one of the MCU. I can't say out of all superhero movies ever, but I think of the 23 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, it's the top for me. Others are excellent. Avengers and Infinity War are pretty close to the top, but this one's my favorite probably. Um, it does really well at balancing all the different elements. I mean, it's a great action movie. If all you're looking for is punches and explosions and jumping off rooftops, you'll enjoy it. Again, entertaining, but
it has
it's all
Nadir in it.
what
It has Abed Nadir from Community in it.
it sure does. But it's also a good story with a good character, and I think it's largely about Steve trying to retain his goodness in a world he doesn't recognize anymore and figure out. I mean, he even says in the movie, like, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm not sure what that is anymore. And then it's about his loyalty to his friend Bucky. So it's like,
Yeah,
you really see the goodness of his character struggling against these other forces.
yeah.
So it has action, it has a good story, but it has the political elements you've mentioned. It also has heart and some really big themes about, I guess, friendship, loyalty, goodness. It has all that together in a really good action movie. So it's the top one for me of the Marvel Universe, at least. Tess said Logan is really good. I agree. I'd say I posted somewhere else. I couldn't pick just one, but I picked my favorite out of each series or each franchise. So Logan is definitely, I think, the best X-Men movie. I guess a little closer to maybe a Dark Knight movie. I mean, not quite the same, but that kind of that serious, that dark rawness, done really well. Okay, you said you've been narrowed it down to the X-Men movies. Can't pick a favorite. I know. Again, that's why if you ask me my favorite, I can't pick one. I have 5 at least.
Yeah. Mine would be probably Days of Future Past.
That's up there. I liked First Class a little better than Future Past, but a lot of people really liked Days of Future Past. It was good. You asked about Spider-Man movies, so I would be remiss if I didn't talk about that. I am a diehard Tobey Maguire fan. I think you are too. So I still think Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man movie. Into the Spider-Verse is a close second. This one, it's still classic, and I'm similar things, I guess. I mean, again, very different tone, obviously from things like Dark Knight, even from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this is before that, but it was 4 years before Iron Man. It's a different tone. It was. I mean, I can see now these Raimi movies the Raimi Maguire movies were intentionally a melodrama, but I think that works for a character like Spider-Man, who's kind of lighthearted. I mean, it wouldn't work as well for Batman or Logan or something like that, but it fits with Spider-Man's tone. Spider-Man 2 got the formula right because, and by the way, I quoted that from Jerry Conway, who's the writer who took over Spider-Man from Stan Lee in the 70s. I read an interview with him one time. He said Spider-Man 2 got the formula right, which is just giving him problems on all sides, work problems, girl problems, money problems, and of course supervillain problems too. But it really tests his strengths. It really tests his character, and he comes out on top. And he struggles with, can I have the superhero life and also the normal person life? Can I have the superhero life and love, or will I always be a danger to the people I love?
And he's given both in their purer forms at various points in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think kind of the takeaway at the end is not, I need to be Spider-Man at the expense of Peter Parker, or Peter Parker at the expense of Spider-Man. I need to be Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
At the end, he starts to realize he can do both. Yeah. So I mean, that ending scene. I mean, this is me just being silly here, but or whatever, embarrassing myself. When I was an angsty 20-something, slightly younger, there were times I would just watch a few of these scenes just to process my emotions. And like that ending scene of like Spider-Man 2 where Mary Jane comes in and says, "Isn't it about time someone saved your life?" I'm just like, I'm like finally because like he's been like under this great duress and this great loneliness for like 2 movies, thinking he has to carry the burden of the world by himself, and starts to realize he doesn't. And
Yeah.
I've at times in my life I've been in that spot too, and I've obviously come out on the other side. Spoilers, um, but that just resonates with me. One of my characters in my novel is very much like Spider-Man, not because I intentionally based him on Spider-Man, more so because I intentionally based him on myself, and he's the everyman. But and Peter Parker is also the everyman in many ways. But it just those stories resonate with me, and Spider-Man in his various forms will always be my favorite superhero. But there you go. So I know we've covered a lot of ground. I know if we had 5 hours, you and I could fill it up talking about more.
But
I guess I'm going to ask you.
Job of kind of covering the storytelling elements that we liked in it. I mean,
Yeah,
superhero movies kind of, maybe not so much anymore, but when we were growing up, kind of had these stereotypes associated with like the old Adam West Batman show, where
yeah.
superhero movies were for, to have a superheroine involved with a skimpy outfit, and the rest was a lot of bam pow fight scenes, and a couple of cut scenes thrown in between for character development.
And I know when the early 2000s Marvel movies came out, we were all really excited for them because, like, oh, Spider-Man on the big screen. By today's standards, a lot of them aren't great or are cheesy. I mean, I still love the Spider-Man movies, but I get they're a little cheesy, intentionally so, I think, but still a little cheesy. The early X-Men movies aren't my favorites anymore. They're all right, and other ones like Daredevil and Fantastic Four and Hulk never really got off the ground. So like, yeah, those early ones by today's standards aren't the best movies, but
they were literally reinventing the genre. I mean, I think in the 80s and early 90s, you had the Batman movies, which started out kind of serious and then quickly got silly.
Once they changed from Tim Burton to Joel Schumacher, yeah.
Yes, and yes. And they were literally and admittedly about selling toys.
The third and fourth ones were, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So, by the time you have Spider-Man come out and Batman Begins, you start seeing the stories take a much more serious tone as to the subject matter.
Batman Begins largely reinvented the genre. I mean, yeah, like the Marvel movies were coming out, or the early ones, and they were doing their own thing, and then Batman Begins came in, and people were like, "This is a really, really good superhero movie."
Yeah, and I would say that the three movies we discussed earlier that we had in common, Avengers, Dark Knight, and Winter Soldier, I think those stand alone as great movies. I don't think they need the. I don't think you need the asterisk of great superhero movies. I think that they are good movies.
I'll agree with you.
I think. Yeah, same. And I think they stand as good movies for all the reasons we just gave. So I really, and you and I have had this discussion before, so it's not like I was shocked when we talked about having 3 overlapping movies involved. And you and I have reacted to different movies very differently. But I think those 3 just really stand out because you had good storytelling that tied into these really important, lasting themes, and you had these really solid characters that were set up and developed throughout. So, and I know we didn't get to Avengers. We could maybe pick that up another time.
It's okay. Yeah, I mean that's an excellent one. I would ask in these last few minutes, really quickly, what are the takeaways for you as a writer? I mean, from any of what you just talked about, anything you want to emulate from these great stories, or that you would take with you?
Well, so I read extensively, and I know you did. Now you're reading.
Still do. I mean, not as fast as you, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I said extensively. I think I meant widely, across all sorts of different genres. So I've read some. And this is something I talk about with my sister a lot. I've read a lot of great stories that had really crappy characters, or flat or whatever. I read some stories with excellent characters and just a really flat story. And then I've read some really great stories with some really great. No, let me take it back. I've read book stuff with good characters and an interesting story, but the story didn't really grab me because it really doesn't tie in to any theme that resonated with me or that I found worthwhile. So, kind of what we've talked about, you got to have a good balance of all three. Now, the goal isn't to strive for perfection. That's out of reach, and that's a really toxic road to go down with writers. But sometimes I think as writers we can get so caught up on that one scene that's just standing out in our mind, or that really cool ender, or that really cool plot twist, and we're so dead set on getting to that point that we forget to develop great characters. Or we've got this character in our mind who's just so cool, so whatever, so three-dimensional, and then we fail to put that character in the midst of a good story. And that is a recipe for a flat book, a flat story. And I think you need the best stories, in my opinion, are the ones that balance all three of those things.
That's a good point. And I'm trying to do that in my writing. I'll let the readers judge how well I've done it. I think character is my strength, and I think I have a pretty good plot that I gave them, and maybe of those three, plot is the weakest. I think themes are. I've tried to get at themes to have a good story, but sometimes I have to pull some strings to make it work the way I want to. But yeah, those elements together, it's what makes us keep coming back to these stories. So I'm trying to do it well. You're trying to do it well, and we have some of the greats to take with us and help us do that.
Mm-hmm.
Tess said we convinced her to give Winter Soldier another watch and hopefully revise her opinion of it. So hey, if that's all we accomplished today, I think I think that's a good thing too. It should be on Disney Plus, I think. So
if we've convinced her to sit well through that movie, we've done something great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Always a good time to give Winter Soldier another watch.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, it's been about an hour. Again, we could talk about this for 5 hours, but we have lives, and I have a baby somewhere in this house. So,
the cat who was playing in the background for most of the video got up a long time ago. So,
cat did get up. Yeah. Thank you, Corbin, for joining me and sharing your insights. Thank you to those who watched at home and commented.
Thanks for the inputs. Tess, did you say Tess?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry, I can't see the comments.
Okay.
Tess.
Okay. I wasn't sure about that. So,
but thanks to everyone to watch, and tell Rachel I said hello.
I'll do that. Everyone watching at home, however many of you there are, I wanted to say if you're not here already, like my page, Samuel N. Harris, for future videos like this, future discussions about topics related to writing, reading, pop culture, all those things. You can sign up for my mailing list. There's a link on the top of my page, and when you sign up, you get a free sample of Fractured Heroes, the book I'm working on, free scenes that you can read, and notifications of future events like this. Next Friday, May 7th, a week from today, is Bandcamp Friday. So I have some audio chapters on Bandcamp, and the first Friday of every month is Bandcamp Friday. They're waiving their fees. So basically, if you give any amount, you have to pay what you will. If you pay any amount for my chapters on Bandcamp Friday, the full amount will go to me directly. Bandcamp will not take a fee. The full amount will go to the author. So I'm going to try to do a live reading on that day too, from the story, to get people involved and get you to hear more of the story. That's my goal. So sign up, keep checking back, and we'll hear more of these things later. And in the meantime, go watch Falcon and Winter Soldier again on Disney Plus, or Captain America: The Winter Soldier. They're both good. So, and today's an off Friday because the show ended last week, so there's no new episode today that I can tell them to watch.
But I think there's Bad Batch from Star Wars. Didn't that premiere today?
I think it's premiering on the 4th because it's May the 4th.
May the 4th. That would make sense.
That's Tuesday. Anyway, have a great Friday, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.